Mr. D's World!
Hello, high schoolers. Welcome back to Mr. D's World. In this ongoing series, I travel the world and talk about my experiences. Today, I'm really excited to be coming to you from one of my favorite places in the world, Galilee in northern Israel. And I'm here in the town of Cana. And in Cana, it's significant because Jesus does a couple of miracles right here that I want to talk to you about. The last couple of weeks, I've been encouraging you to read through the book of John and be paying special attention to the miracles that Jesus performs. And I want to go back with you now and take a look in much closer detail at each of those signs or miracles that Jesus performs. And the first two of those signs happen right here in Cana. The first one, as you remember, is when Jesus goes to a wedding and he turns water into wine. And then after that story happens, Jesus goes down to Jerusalem, he cleans out the temple, he meets Nicodemus, and then as he's on his way back to Galilee, back here to Cana, he meets the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4, and now he's arrived back here in Cana, which is just a few miles away from Nazareth, from his hometown. And so Jesus has arrived here, and there's a man in Capernaum, which is about 20 miles away, down near the Sea of Galilee, and you can see here on this map that Capernaum, right there in the top right corner, right by the Sea of Galilee, there's an official there whose son is very sick, and he's close to death. And the official hears that Jesus has arrived in Cana, which is, again, about 20 miles away from Capernaum. And so in John chapter 4, it says this, verse 47. It says, "When the man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death." Now again, think about this. This is like about 20 miles away, and it's slightly uphill from Capernaum to Cana, and Jesus is there, and this man's son is sick, and he thinks that Jesus is maybe his last hope to save his son. Now the verse doesn't tell us how the man went. It just says that he went to him. And when I read this verse, I think that when it says he went to him, I think he went by running. I don't think he took his time. I think he tried to get there as quickly as he could, because here was a dad who was worried about his son, and he was going to do all he could do to save him. Now, this story for me made sense to me about 11 years ago when I had an experience where in my backyard, we have a steep bank that goes down to a creek in the back of our yard. And we thought it would be kind of neat to build a little picnic area, a little sitting area in the bank. And where I live, the dirt is really red and hard, and it's like this clay, and there's a lot of rocks in the dirt, and it's hard to dig. So I was out there with like a digging iron and shovel, kind of trying to dig into the bank to make this sitting area. And then one day, this was like middle of the summer, there was a major heat wave coming through. It was like the hottest week of the summer, and I was out there working at this, and my dad had offered to come and help. And so he and I spent the day out there, and we were digging, and we were working so hard, and we were just about finished. I think my muscles were extremely tired. I don't think I could lift the shovel or the digging iron again because I was just so worn out from this day of digging. Meanwhile, up in the house, my daughter Katie was about a year old at the time, and she had not been feeling well for a couple of days. And my mom was along, and so she was hanging out with the kids in the house. And just as I was as my dad and I were finishing up our digging outside, my wife appeared at the top of the hill and called down to me and said, "Brian, come. Katie's having a seizure." And at that moment, I think I understood this man in the story. I didn't know what was going on. I was so concerned about her well-being. I dropped my digging iron and my shovel, and I ran as quickly as I could up to the house. I think I maybe could have beaten Usain Bolt in a sprint. I went so fast. I wasn't worried about being tired. I wasn't worried about my muscles hurting. I was worried about my daughter, who was having a seizure. We called 911, the ambulance came, and we were very blessed with the fact that she was okay. Her fever had spiked, and that's what caused her to have this seizure. But praise God, she was okay. But I understand this man in the story. My child is sick. Let me get to help as quickly as I can. And let me run to Jesus, which is what he did. There's a third story then that you're going to be looking at where Jesus is going to be back in Jerusalem and he's going to heal on the Sabbath. And so what I'm having you do this week is look closely at these first three signs in John. You're going to look at Jesus turning water into wine. You're going to look at the story of Jesus healing the official's son that I just talked about when he went from Capernaum to Cana to find Jesus. And you're going to look at the story of Jesus healing on the Sabbath. And I have a few questions for you to respond to and reflect for this week. All right, that's all for today, everybody. Thanks for watching Mr. D's World. Have a great week. Let me know if you have any questions. And I hope you'll be blessed as you look at these stories of Jesus from the book of John.